I'd like to now call this meeting of the Coventry Town Council to order at 6:31 PM. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Here.
Councilmember Ludwig. Here. Councilmember Shockley.
Here.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Here.
President Lima.
Here. Councilmember Pasqua, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency, please exit out either the doors you came in or door number 1 behind you. Exit to the back parking lot or to the front lawn of Town Hall. I'll now take a motion to first seek approval of the minutes as a block.
I'll make the motion. Second.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc, second from Councilman Pasqua. Any discussion? Councilmember Ludwig.
I believe we've talked about this before. I did not attend the 24th, but if you still want to approve in a block, I don't have a problem. I did review them.
Thank you. It's purely administrative, so you can still vote on them. No further discussion. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
We'll now move to approval of the minutes for November 28th, 2022 executive session, January 24th, 2023, February 21st, executive and public session, February 27th, executive and public session, March 24th, executive session, March 20th, executive session. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. Motion by Vice President Blank, second by Councilmember Shockley. Discussion? Clerk, did you receive any edits?
I did not.
Hearing no further discussion, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
This evening, I know we do have some folks that specifically wanted to make public comment, but not necessarily on docketed items. Could I hear a motion to allow undocketed public comment up front this evening?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Shockley, second by Councilman Pasqua. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
Moving on to public comments. Do we have any members here in council chambers who would like to make public comments? Mr. Vaca, if you want to come on forward, please state your name and address for the record, please. Just make sure the mic is on. Just push the button up. Okay.
There it is. Charles Vaca, 124 Fairway Drive. Thank you for allowing me to speak before the council. Good evening, everyone. The last 2 years, the Rhode Island Heritage Commission, which was the brainchild of the Bicentennial Commission years ago in 1976, has decided, instead of having a statewide conference on workshops and bus tours, things like that, we actually sponsored one in West Warwick that covered Coventry back in 2013. This will be the second year that they will have one on cemetery preservation and awareness. So therefore, we have planned a whole list of events. And my purpose here is to make you aware of that and to personally invite all of you there. I think you'll very much enjoy some of the events. For example, this Saturday, we have a cleanup, and it's not as difficult as it sounds, because Maureen Buffy, with a bunch of high school kids, merit scholars, mind you, to get their community service projects, have done a wonderful job over in Maple Root Cemetery, which is probably one of the oldest cemeteries in all of Rhode Island. It probably dates back to the year after King Philip's War, which ended in 1676. And it's on Hockney Hill Road. It's right across from the Baptist Church. And it's probably one of the biggest common burial grounds other than the one in Newport that everyone knows about. So we're gonna have a cleanup there. We're just further cleaning up leaves, and we're trying to encourage some floor covering that's to the rear of the cemetery that we would love to just cover the whole cemetery, which would be very nice. So that's at 9 o'clock this Saturday. So if you guys rake your own lawns, you can certainly do this, okay? The thing that we'd like to encourage also is, I've lived here for 23 years, and I think what we do in the cemeteries is very positive. And we'd like to bring the town together. We'd like to bring in other groups other than just our inner core. Our inner core is only about 5 to 7 people. And we would love to have like other groups join us to clean these. There are 200 known cemeteries in Coventry. There's another 50 that I call lost to the ages. Some of them we've actually identified. Okay. Representative Ludwig, there's one over near you over in the woods over in Teakwood Drive. The property owner doesn't want us to go near it, but it's very old. So that just gives you an example. So here is the schedule.
Could
We
you
also
share,
ha-
could you share that with the clerk so she
Sure.
can share with us afterwards?
We also have a tour of Pine Grove Cemetery. And it amazes me that a lot of people don't know where these cemeteries are. This one is located right next to Manchester. It's part of the old Manchester estate. It's part of the Knotty Oak Cemetery Complex, which is at the corner of 116 and 117. Pine Grove is, as you're going towards West Warwick, right before you go underneath that nice overhang that you guys redid. Take a 90-degree turn and you're right in Pine Grove. Okay. People like George Parker Woodland are buried there. Byron Reed was supposed to be buried there. He has a crypt there, but he ended up being buried across the street. A former probate clerk who Stephen Griffiths is buried there, has one of the most beautiful obelisk monuments in the whole town. So again, I'd like to keep it brief. We look forward to seeing you there. And you take a look at the list, you can pick and choose whatever you choose. We have demos. We have a woman that takes photographs. She uses mirrors of illegible stones. Using the mirror, you can read it like a book. And she takes pictures, and she takes pictures for the state website of historical cemeteries. So it's pretty amazing. You would never believe it until you actually see it. Okay. So any questions?
No, thank you very much for the
All right,
update.
we'll look forward to seeing you all on Saturday. Thank you very much. Have a nice.
Thank you. Next up front, I saw your name and next. State your name and address for the record, please.
Ryan St. Ange, 45 Sunapee Court, Coventry. Good evening, Town Council members. My name is Ryan St. Ange, and I am a property owner, taxpayer, and resident of Coventry at 45 Sunapee Court since my girlfriend and I purchased and moved in together in 2017. I'm here tonight to bring to your attention the details of a potential development project that's been proposed on Sunapee Court. You'd be forgiven for being unfamiliar with the street, as it is only about a quarter-mile long dead-end road off of South Main across from Dave's Market. It features 12 smaller 2 or 3 bedroom residences, no multi-units or commercial property, just strictly modest to single-family homes. These house lots, as well as the surrounding, are all in the R20 zone, denoting a 20,000 square foot requirement per single-family home. The proposal I'm here to talk about is called Monument Hill. This proposal calls for 4 individual apartment buildings, each having 6 units, for a total of 24 units on a 4-acre parcel. This is double the number of R20 compliant single-family dwellings that currently comprise Sunapee Court. The drawing submitted at February's town planning staff meeting featured 49 individual parking spaces in the complex, which is more than double the amount of vehicles currently registered to Sunapee Court. Already on the street, there is not enough room for 2 vehicles to pass by one another. And if someone is turning out onto South Main, you cannot turn onto the street until they've moved. This is something that myself, other residents, and our guests already encounter multiple times a day, especially around school times and commute times due to the daycare activity from Katy Street. This traffic concern is already readily apparent to anyone coming and going from Sunapee Court. Tripling the amount of traffic flow on a daily basis will undoubtedly turn what is already an inconvenience into a legitimate hazard. With the potential of 72 bedrooms on a mere 4 acres, this project doesn't support conformity in terms of population density, nor is it conforming with the current zoning. There is no plan in place for water access, as Kent County has not confirmed as to whether or not they could even supply the project with water. The proposal indicates that if the water main cannot provide the apartments with water, they will need 4 separate wells. These wells would have their own implications with the surrounding neighbors' wells, as well as direct implications to the amount of free space available after the structures are placed on the lot. This project has absolutely zero community support. I have here a petition with 30+ signatures from every resident of Sunapee Court, Bank Street, Katy Street, and Yawkey Way, all the streets that abut this property, with the exception of 29 Bank Street due to the owner is on a town board, so he's had to recuse himself. The truth is, the proposed building site is a really nice lot. And if not for traffic concerns or a single means of entry or egress into the property, it would be suitable for 1 or 2 single-family homes. That was in the developer's initial proposal to me, which I still have with his drawings on them. This new proposal for 4 multi-unit dwellings, 24 units, and 49 parking spaces is erroneous, out of place, and unprecedented. It would be an egregious disservice of local government to the residents of this neighborhood if this proposal was allowed to pass. I understand that this specific meeting may not be the proper forum for these arguments to be heard, so I would like to invite you all to the pre-approval hearing for the project scheduled to take place at tomorrow night's planning board meeting. I simply wanted to come here to bring these issues to the council's awareness and request that you put your support behind me and the hardworking people of my neighborhood to protect us from having our quiet, single-family street overrun by some urban development project that simply does not belong there. Thank you for allowing me to voice mine and my neighbors' concerns.
Thank you. If you have any materials you wanted to submit to the clerk to share with the council, we're happy to take that too.
So I have the petition, which has already been submitted. And then this is an old plan. I would be willing to maybe give a copy, but I don't want to give it up, if that makes sense,
That's fine.
going forward. So
Yep.
I don't know if is it something that you guys would want? I mean, I thought you guys couldn't really answer, like. I
Yeah, if
can't
you,
ask
or if you could
questions, I
even
mean.
take a cell phone picture of it.
Yeah,
and
sure.
and
And
send-
I'll forward it to the email chain. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Ludwig.
So I know we can't engage in a dialogue on this as it's not on the agenda.
Correct.
Sunapee is actually in District 2, and I represent the citizens in that area. I'm very familiar. My children went to Child Inc. and I do know of the area very, very intimately. So I will connect with you offline. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cronin, I think was next. Oh, I'm sorry. You had your hand up as well. He had his hand up first. Yep. Just state your name and address for the record.
Bob Giampietro, Giampietro, 48 Sunapee Court. I've been a resident at Sunapee Court for 55 years. I've got more seniority on the street. Not that that's going to get me a cup of coffee at McDonald's, but that's a fact. A similar incident took place in 1969. And the town never resolved it. It's still open. A gentleman by the name of Ernest E. Moran. He lived on the end of Bank Street. He had 11 acres. He wanted to develop that with 5 multi-dwellings, and he wanted to open up the end of Sunapee Court, where I live, for a regress. They would egress on Bank, egress off Sunapee Court. We were opposed to that mostly because of traffic. We obtained a lawyer. We had it surveyed. And the surveyor said, there's something wrong with the street. He had to go down on the corner of 117 and South Main Street and pick up a known marker. He came up South Main Street, came up Sunapee Court, And the whole street was moved by Ernest Moran on his own without permission from the town. And why he moved it, because when you come up, right at the corner there is all ledge. And he was opposed to spending any more money, dynamiting or whatever he had to do to put the road in. He moved it 12 feet. He proceeded down the street and then he decided to put the 7th home in where Ryan lives. He moved the street again. So everyone on the left side of the street owns at least 12 feet of the street. When this happened, Moran withdrew his petition because he knew he couldn't win. The town, and I have all the documentation, there's nothing like a paper trail, and I have all the documentation. At that time, the lawyer told the town either retribution for what was paying tax on or move the street. We did nothing. So at that time, the 7 homes decided we're going to put a chain across the street, which is the very first house at 40 Sunapee Court. We all agreed and the town respectfully requested that we didn't do it because of fire, rescue, what have you. So that is still open and the town should not be considering, which would be tomorrow night on the planning board, what Ryan talked about, till the town straightens this out. That's 55 years ago. And you talk to most of the people in the town, most of you probably weren't even born then. So we're going to be here tomorrow night in front of the planning board to get this resolved one way or the other. And right in the proposal that the plaintiff has submitted admits that the Kent County cannot supply the amount of water because the pipe coming up, the feed line in Sunapee Court is very low pressure. And he wants to feed 24 apartments off our line. Can't do it. Just can't. So the only thing they can do is they would have to run a new line from 117 up South Main Street, up Sunapee Court, just to feed those apartments. Not feasible. And that's it for tonight. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? I'm sorry.
Councilor Ludwig.
I believe you left me a voicemail earlier today, sir.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm Jen Ludwig. I think you left me a voicemail earlier. Did you leave me a voicemail a little bit earlier today?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I was at work earlier, but I will certainly give you a call back.
Well, when you get a
Thank you.
chance, you can follow me. I'd appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cronin, I believe, was next.
Thank you, Madam President. Attorney Thomas Cronin, 1070 Main Street, Coventry, Rhode Island. I'm making public comment on agenda item 14A, petition to amend the zoning ordinance text and or map, Wood Estates Residents Association, Assessors Plat 10 and 18, Assessors Lot Number AP 10, Lot 29, and AP 18, Lot 86. I'll keep my comments brief as I have filed a letter of objection with the council. However, I didn't want to let the opportunity to pass to voice our objection to this proposal. I represent the owners of this property. And they are quite concerned with this application as it doesn't come from them and they do not agree with it. So you'll find in the letter that I highlight some technical issues with regard to spot zoning. And in particular, the state law that requires that the single deciding factor of the council is the conformity of the zone change with the comprehensive plan. In this particular case, this particular lot happens to be mentioned in the comprehensive plan, calls for a mix of commercial and residential use in an aesthetically pleasing manner. I don't know exactly what that means, but we'll work it out, I guess. At any rate, a new zone is not in conformance with the current comprehensive plan. And the mention of this lot in the comprehensive plan does not call for agricultural or open space designation precluding development. In addition, the property is under a purchase and sales agreement, and a proposed development has been presented to the planning board at pre-application. A change of zone of the change of zone of this lot in these circumstances amounts to a taking by the town. And I've set that out in the letter, and I don't think I need to belabor that point. But a change of zone so that there's no reasonable use of the property, the taking by a municipality as found by the Rhode Supreme Court. And as we're under a purchase and sales agreement, there's not really much of a debate about the current value of the lot, and the town would be exposed to that. So those are our comments. Please, if you have any concerns regarding my letter or the objections further set out there, you can feel free to ask me questions or contact me outside of these meetings. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members in council chambers for public comment? On Zoom, any members of the public like to make a public comment? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Public comment is now closed. Moving on to item 5, election and/or appointment of town officials. Town council appointments, A, Library Board of Trustees. We have technically 2 openings here, 1 full and 1 term expiring May 1st, 2023, so an unexpired term. We have here in our packets applications from Jason Farber and Glenn Underwood. At this time, if I'll entertain a motion for either Mr. Farber or Mr. Underwood to start. Anyone? Just at least start discussion.
I'll make the motion to start a discussion on Mr. Underwood.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc,
Second.
second from Councilman Pasqua. Discussion.
Are we going to invite Mr. Underwood up to ask questions, or?
If you'd like to. Mr. Underwood, you want to come up? Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Glenn Underwood, 818 Hopkins Hollow Road.
Questions from members of the council? Councilmember Shockley.
So you are currently on the board, Mr. Underwood?
I am currently serving, yeah. It's been
So-
on since 2010.
Is yours the open position? Or
My term's expiring
in May?
in May, yeah.
Okay, all
Yep.
right. Just tell me a little bit about what you do on the board as president and some maybe things you take pride in.
Okay. Fairly easy. I've been on the town library board since 2010, but all my life I've been interested in library and library service. I think it's an important part of any part of the community. We're a big part of the town library serves a lot of people, has a lot of services that maybe are not completely known to everybody, but when you get involved, you learn that there is a lot of services that the town library does provide between programming, historical programming, educational programming, and also just the amount of material that you can borrow from the library. And I've been a big supporter of expanding that. I have been active on the library board for many, many years. I was elected president to replace John Ball, who was president for many, many years. So that was quite an honor to step into his place. I serve on the finance committee that the library board has appointed and on the personnel committee. So again, I think, we're facing challenging times for space. As the council probably knows, we've been looking for additional space for programming. That's one of our goals, that, we do need more space. And also we want to get I'll say our marketing out there even more so people know more about our services to support the town.
Further questions, discussion from members of the council? Council Ludwig.
Can we just clarify? So the term is up.
This is to
May
renew
1st,
his
so
term, I believe, correct,
Just to
Joanne?
renew?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions, discussion from the council? Anything else, Mr.
Nope.
Underwood?
Appreciate the opportunity to serve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there, Vice President LeBlanc.
Question for the town clerk. We had another person, Jason Farber. He can't make it tonight, correct?
It's correct.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that. But I will make a motion to reappoint Glenn Underwood.
Second.
We already had the motion and second. Do we start to just? Okay. Motion from Vice President Blank, second from Councilman Pasqua. Any discussion? Council Ludwig?
Is there any concern about non-quorum for a meeting this month? Do we need to? No? Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Do I hear a motion to appoint Jason Farber to the other opening for the Library Board of Trustees?
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Councilmember Shockley,
Second.
second from Councilman Pasqua. Discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Item B, Juvenile Hearing Board, Mark Monahan. Clerk, we see in our packet that you sent a letter to Mr. Monahan on, let's see here. March 15th, or I'm sorry. March 15th. Did you get a response?
I did not.
Is Mr. Monahan in the room this evening? Mr. Monahan on Zoom? And we also have a letter in our packet from, oh, I'm sorry, that's related to Jason Farber. With that, do I hear a motion to remove Mr. Monahan from the Juvenile Hearing Board?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion from Vice President Blank, second from Councilman Pasqua. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Do I hear a motion to open discussion on the Juvenile Hearing Board appointment?
Make that motion.
Motion by Councilman Pasqua,
I'll second it.
second by Councilmember Shockley. Discussion? Councilman Pasqua?
Say let's, we have 3 applicants here on the list. Make a motion, well, actually, as we have Andrew Para come up and say a few words and comment on his application.
We do have someone here today.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we have 2 of them in-house. We have Andrew Para and Robert Mann in-house.
All right. Mr. Parra, do you want to come up? Just introduce yourself. And state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name's Andrew Para. Most of you know me. I've applied for this position 3 or 4 times now. I've been on the board once, off the board, on the board, off the board. The last 2 times, I don't know why I got passed by, but here I am the 3rd time. Let me give you a little history. I'm a retired fire chief from the Coventry Fire District. I served on the school committee in Coventry 1.5 terms. I fulfilled somebody else's term, then my own. I recently left the Charter Review Commission, which I sat on twice. Juvenile Hearing Board I've been on, and I've filled in 2 or 3 times since. Last night being one of them. And the Juvenile Hearing Board has been a passion of mine. I just kind of like to get back on it. I don't know what else I can say. Like I said, most of you people know me. You've heard me interview before. So that's about all I can say.
Any questions for Mr. Para from the council? Thank you very much. Mr. Mann is here with us. You'd like to come up and introduce yourself, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Robert Mann. My address is 5150 Flat River Road. I was on the Juvenile Hearing Board, I believe, for 2 terms, and then the last time my application was up, it wasn't, I applied for it, but I didn't get a chance to interview for it. I would like to get back on the Juvenile Hearing Board. I enjoy dealing with kids. I think we're all kids once, we all make mistakes. And I don't think kids should be punished for making a childish mistake. Give them a, if you will, pardon the phrase, a get out of jail free card for one pass for some things, not everything, but I've lived in the town of Coventry my entire life. I raised my family in Coventry. I still work in Coventry. My two sons live in Coventry, and my oldest son is a full-time firefighter in EMT on Anthony Fire Department. Hopefully I have the qualifications needed, but I would like to get back on the hearing board if at all possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question.
Counselor Ludwig.
Just want to understand is, are you
I am a
a
full-time
senior?
fire.
Are you Robert Mann Senior? Is Stephen your son?
Do I have to answer that?
I'm just confused
Yes, he
here.
is.
Which,
I'm
Are you-
joking with you. Yes, he's my son.
and
My
you're
own-
Mr. Robert Mann.
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much for
No
the
problem.
clarification.
Thank you.
Councilman Pasqua.
I believe Stephen Mann is on Zoom, but he may not be available. He's working at the firehouse.
Oh, no, I see his name.
Yeah, I don't know if he's there. Nope, there we got a hand. Yep.
Yep. Stephen, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Stephen Mann, 652 Franklin Road, Coventry.
Stephen, I think you interviewed with us before. Do you just want to talk about your remaining interests or in the juvenile hearing board?
Yeah, I just want to serve back on, give it back to the town. And actually, I got to go on a run right now. And I look forward to using my experience with my minor in criminal justice and juvenile justice.
All right, we'll let you go. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Shockley.
Well, I don't necessarily need anyone to stand up. Only Stephen indicated that he was not interested in being on any other boards in his application. And just nod your head or shake it. Would either of you be interested in any other board besides the juvenile hearing board? It seems like we have 3 positive candidates who want to be on this board. And I certainly don't want to turn people away if there's other ways they'd like to be part of the town. So would you be interested in another board?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Councilman Pasqua.
I did speak with Stephen prior to, he also indicated he has experience with a juvenile fire setter program, which is like a rehabilitation program in the fire marshal level too. So just want to make that known to the council as well.
Further comments, question, discussion from members of the council?
I'll make a motion to appoint Stephen A. Mann. Stephen, sorry.
We have a motion from Vice President LeBlanc. Do we have a second?
Second that.
Second from Councilman Pasqua. Discussion?
Just the reason why I made the motion was he has not been on this board before. I thought, and he also wasn't interested in serving on any other board. So that's why I made the motion.
Councilman Pasqua.
I also agree with Councilman LeBlanc that he hasn't served on any board. He's a great candidate as are the other 2 applicants as well. So that's why I'm second on that.
Councilmember Shockley.
I just wish we had this problem more often, that we had too many qualified candidates for a board and we just had to make a choice. I can't say I have any reason one way or the other to vote for or against any of these gentlemen. And I appreciate all of them applying.
Any further discussion from members of the council? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Madam Clerk, can you please connect with Mr. Mann and Mr. Para and let them know what vacancies are open on boards and solicit interest from there to keep them involved? Thank you. Councilmember Shockley.
Just based on not recalling, is this replacing Mr. Monahan?
This is now, yes.
Okay.
That's why
I-
it says
I couldn't
possibly.
recall from last.
That's why it says
meeting, so
possibly
thank you.
one, it was dependent upon action in item B. Okay. Moving on to resolutions of the council. Item A, tax assessors additions and abatements for December 2022. This is pages 45 to 49 of your packets. Yes. Is Ms. Martini here to speak to this? Okay. Resolution on page 49 of your packet, whereas in the town of Coventry. Now therefore be it resolved that the additional tax abatements and additions for December 2022 be hereby approved by the Honorable Town Council. I feel like this is missing some words. Welcome. No problem. Well, to get discussion rolling, do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Councilmember Shockley,
Second.
second by Councilman Pasqua. Ms. Martini, if you just want to give us a brief overview. Can you just, is the mic on? Thank you.
Okay, abatements and additions for the end of the year. Awesome. You have one. All right, so we have abated taxes in the amount of 3237.63. As shown on your list. And then we have prorated taxes in the amount of $24,296.23. And the supplementals were at $13,720.26.
Discussion from members of the council? Questions? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes,
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
thank you. All good, no worries. Thank you. Council President Communications, this one's kind of a repeat. I had sent you all an email, I believe yesterday with a bunch of dates for the coming months to keep on your calendar. This one, DPW's sponsored Earth Day that they do every year is on April 22nd from 9 to noon. They supply gloves, trash bags, breakfast, well, donuts, muffins, coffee, and then there's pizza donated as well. So pull together a team, pick an area that's near and dear to you. I personally like to do the Trestle Park that's right near my house. This is an invitation to any member of the public, free to participate in. And you'd be surprised how much you could pick up even in just if you could donate an hour of your time. It all makes a difference. Just mark your calendars for that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the team at DPW. Councilmember Communications, Councilmember Ludwig had wanted to talk about the Economic Development Commission survey. Throw it over to you.
Thank you. Can I request that Mr. Pimentel come up and join me, please? He's a member on the EDC. So just to note, there's a difference between what we're going to talk about now and his presentation shortly. We're strictly talking about the survey that was done for right now. So we'll try and keep this short, and the meat is really a little bit later once we get into the budget agenda. So on the screen, and then also everyone should have a packet here at the council. The Economic Development Commission has been meeting multiple times a year for, I believe, just shy of 2 years, more than a year and a half, just under 2 years that we were created and everyone got together. One of the struggles that I think the group has faced is figuring out what are some of the things that we should be focused on. And so what we did is we put together a list of about 10 or 11 questions to help get a little insight into where we think the group can add some value and where people may be having some challenges in town. We had 43 people respond to the survey. And Cody, could you go to the next slide? 43 people responded. And just to put this in perspective, obviously 43 people is a tiny number in Coventry. But overall, if you take a look at other surveys that the town has put out, this is more people than participating in the comp plan. It's about half as many people that came in on the ARPA money. So it's actually a decent response. I'm not saying this is indicative of the entire town, but it's actually a pretty decent response based off of recent surveys over the last year. Some of these items were specific questions, and then other areas we asked people to provide their own commentary. Very elementary, you know, are you a business? Are you a property owner? People made up their own categories, real estate agent, town employee. So we have a mix here, but predominantly residents who self-identified here. All right, next slide, Cody. Some of the questions that we asked some of the folks, they may have answered a hearty yes, a hearty no, or a yes with the qualification. So we did our best to be data scientists here and provide all the commentary. And then anyone who simply answered yes, no, or sounds good, we took that as a yes. So this is not a true scientific experiment here. Please bear with us. Anything that resembled it, maybe yes, sounds good, went to the yeses, and that'll be true for the rest of the survey as well. What we found was a number of people have not even utilized the town website at all. And those that had, of the 11 yeses, only 5 of them had ever even been on the EDC branch of our coventryri.org site. So I know we got a number of complaints about, or I'll call them complaints, that's what they seem like, about the website being hard to navigate, not knowing where to go. This was a pretty consistent theme. Tim, maybe I can have you just talk for a few minutes about the theme on this page, and then as we're a consistent theme kind of running through the next couple slides.
Sure, thank you. Tim Pimentel, 10 Leah's Lane. Again, thank you, Councilwoman Ludwig, for the opportunity to help give the presentation. So again, just to continue on with what was being said. I mean, again, so you know, we came into this with very little information. So this is very much a starting point. We're trying to get a sense and a feel for where our committee can be most effective. So this is more than what we had to work with. So we were excited. I know that may be kind of sorry sounding, but we were excited to get what we got. But it did lead to some pretty obvious you know, general feelings. And again, we found it striking that 3 out of every 4 people never even went on the website. So you know, again, that opens up conversations like, you know, maybe the town needs to, you know, look into putting more effort into socializing the website, or maybe the website itself needs to be improved. So again, I'm not going to go into every possible tentacle, but those are the kind of things that we're hoping that this information gleans. And again, we're certainly not going to read, or, you know, you can read on your own time, all the individual comments, but that's very much, you know, what the survey provided us. It's finally some good tangible information, feedback from the community that we can use to start steering our efforts. And let me flip to the next page. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So on this next page, again, we start drilling down into, something that we've heard, and you'll, hear me mention again in a little while. One of the things that we hear as a committee is that processes, how do I get things done? How do I find things out? How do I get information? And this information, again, without going through it in detail, basically affirmed that that's what we're hearing. So people find it difficult to find information, to get through processes, whether it be, a town process or an approval or, anything that they want to do for their business or for their property. So that's, again, more or less what's on this page. I'm not going to bore you with all the details. And you can see it. So, although the majority of people, again, 3 out of every 4 did not go through a process, we did learn that the people who did struggle.
One other thing to call out, bottom of the page, are there any town ordinances that have limited your ideas, infrastructure expanded, marketing? Got to remember, 42 people said no, but only 43 people responded, and almost all of them were residents. So that was kind of a natural response. So I just want to be careful that we don't say, oh, no ordinances need to be improved. No, nothing needs to be improved here. It's just most of these people have not been through the process, and most of them self-identified as a resident versus a business owner. So that's where we just need to be thoughtful of who filled out the survey.
And again, that's why I think if you do read the comments, you'll see, the ones that are applicable, and again, I'll call attention to the very bottom one. And it was constructive, I mean, not all of them were, constructive, but this one, was, polite about, it's a discouraging process. So that's, that's the kind of information that we were looking to get. And just scanning ahead to the next slide. And obviously, if there's any questions on, again, we're just trying to be mindful of time as well. So again, you can see, and this is something, that the group is very excited about, what it's not always about like, hey, what's wrong? Tell us what's broken. We like hearing about, what are some of the things that are and we know this as people involved with the town, there are many things that are good about the town. So again, you can see the list on the left. What are some of the things that are assets? And again, this is just good information to have, as we build the assets and the resources and the plans and the policies of the future that are going to drive the town's growth. Again, some of these seem obvious, some of them don't, but they're in writing. And, we have tangible evidence that we're just not, this is what I think, we have input.
There are more than 43 responses on the left. You could choose more than one, for example. So we just tallied up all the responses. As you can see, the top 2, proximity to major highways and open space and hiking areas were by far the top 2 that were mentioned across the board. I think we see that in some of the problems each of the counselors face as well, not just the EDC item. One thing to note, those are 2 things that we've highlighted in the videos that will soon come out from CGI. They do a free video for the town. We are working on that with Manager Perillo right now, and I believe it'll ultimately make its way to the solicitor. So the videos will focus on, the assets, the beautiful things about Coventry, and we'll have those videos out sometime in the next few months.
And again, just to jump back in, the comments on this page I found to be very constructive, in one way or the other. I thought they were all very good. Okay, so we're gonna spoil my presentation a little bit in the coming moments. So we did want to ask the town what they thought about the need for a economic development position, right? So as a volunteer group, we're happy. We're doing it because we want to make a difference, but we're limited as to what we can do. So we wanted to test the waters via the survey. Would the community be open to having a staff position that can focus. And when I mean focus, that's what they're going to do. So, our monthly meetings are very productive. We have, and council, member Pascal was part of that. I mean, there was never a shortage of ideas and energy. But the town, again, I'm tipping my scale here, but that, we want to advocate. And you can see it here that, I think people would back that.
Don't spoil it.
I'll stop there.
Don't spoil the next presentation.
I'll stop there. Yeah, more to follow on that subject. But again, if there's any questions, be happy to help answer.
Any questions from members of the council? Any additional comments, Councilor Ludwig?
One last comment. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. On the very last page, you don't have to bring it back up, Cody, but on the last page, we asked, do you know that Coventry has some of the lowest commercial intangible or personal property taxes as compared to Rhode Island communities? Most people said no. I think there's a perception out there that Coventry has the worst taxes in Rhode Island with the biggest taxes. I'm paying so much in taxes. Actually, we're extremely competitive with several nearby locations and actually much better than several surrounding towns. So
But
I would
particu-
argue there's
I'm
a,
sorry, particularly on the commercial side. But
Yes.
I mean,
on the commercial, well, I'm specifically talking about commercial for right now. Yes, absolutely. But I think there's a misperception possibly in the community that taxes are way too high here, and actually we're extremely competitive or better than multiple surrounding towns near us. So that may be something that we can look to help socialize. Thank you.
thank
Thank
you
you.
again.
If there's no further discussion, we'll move on to item 14A, petition to amend the zoning ordinance text and or map. Wood Estates Residents Association, Assessors Plat 10 and 18, Assessors Lot Number AP 10, Lot 29, and AP 18, Lot 86. The materials for this start at page 50 in your packets. Madam Clerk, any particular comments to introduce this to the council?
No, I don't have any.
You just want to talk a little bit about it? Give some detail?
Well, received back on January 23rd in my office and was recorded in the clerk's office and then was passed on.
If I may, Madam President,
Manager Perlow.
in working with Ms. Amatrona, once we believe the applicant met all the requirements for the application to the checklist is when we decided to put it on the agenda to be heard, with the process being forwarded to the Planning Commission upon the council's approval, Planning Department recommendation and investigation, and then it'll come back to us at the end of that process.
Just to confirm, with the solicitor, the motion here is to refer to the planning commission, correct?
correct.
Okay.
Question.
I gotta open it up for discussion. Do I have here a motion to refer the petition to the planning commission?
Make that motion.
Motion from Councilman Pasqua. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Councilmember Shockley. Discussion, Vice President LeBlanc.
It's more so a question for Mr. Angel. Are we required to forward this, or could we vote on this tonight as a town council that we do not want this to go forward to planning?
You're required to forward it under state law to the planning commission for their review and recommendation. It will come back to you in a timely fashion for you to hold your public hearing on the petition itself with, of course, their appraisal in hand.
Okay, I wanted the public to know that we're actually not allowed to say no to this tonight.
Correct.
Any further discussion from members of the council? Council Ludwig.
So what are we actually voting on? Do we have to vote then?
We have to formally vote
Refer.
to refer this to the planning commission. We have to get it on the record that we're referring it.
Okay, so I'll just do a couple of comments here since we have no choice. So
And the comments and discussion should pertain to the motion to refer, not to the project itself. Well,
the motion to refer. So I'll say I'm not in support of passing this to the planning commission. It sounds like we kind of have to based on state law. I'm not in favor of looking at or referring applications that come from alternate parties that don't even own the property. I think this will set an irreversible type of precedent in Coventry. This is possibly leading to an eminent domain situation, which I am extremely against, without extreme caution and full review of the council. So I am against my will going to say yes to refer this to the planning commission. Thank you.
further discussion from members of the council on the motion to refer? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig,
No.
Councilmember Shockley,
No.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Are we
It
going?
has to go to planning.
Yeah,
It's
then
state
yes,
law.
I changed mine to yes.
Yes, only because I have to.
okay, and President Lima.
Yes,
And it'll be back to us in 65 days or within 60.
this, the decision from the planning board will be back to the council within 65 days. 65 or 45? 45 days, I apologize. Moving on to item B, request for consideration, Economic Development Coordinator. We have this for the Economic Development Commission. Welcome back.
Surprise. Still temperamental, 10 Leas Lane, Coventry. I did tip my hand, but again, thank you. So good evening, Council President Lima, Vice President LeBlanc, members of the council, Mr. Town Manager. Again, my name is Tim Pimentel, member of the Coventry Economic Development Commission. The Coventry EDC is a volunteer committee comprised of town residents with backgrounds in business ownership and senior level management experience in various industries. We meet monthly with the goal of bringing value-added ideas and recommendations that will benefit the residents of Coventry. From the very first meeting, it was recognized that the town lacked the resources, staff, and even the basic tools and information to formulate a plan or even a specific starting point or focus on any structured economic development effort. The town lacks a detailed local business list with owner contact information, data, or metrics on business types, numbers of employees, or business needs, and any sort of plan or study that would help guide the EDC efforts. Thanks to Coventry's rich and diverse geographic and cultural makeup, the town has tremendous opportunity in a wide range of business and economic activities. Everything from suburban retail and commercial to light industrial to rural agriculture suited for the western sections of town. Not many other towns have a national big box store and a farm fresh veggie stand and a Cord maze all within 10 miles of each other. The town, however, lacks dedicated resources to organize and unlock the potential. This leads us to the reason for our participation in tonight's meeting, which is to strongly recommend the inclusion of a full-time economic development position in next year's budget. The number one complaint that the EDC has fielded, even within our own commission members, is that it's too difficult to navigate town processes, ordinances, and planning and zoning areas to get their businesses up and running or make changes such as new signage. The survey results, as we just spoke about, even with only a small number of participants, also confirms this is a major issue within our town. We are aware that the town council has taken interest in beautification efforts such as the painting of the bridge on Main Street and Sandy Bottom Road. How can businesses attempt their own modernizations where there are complicated and confusing sign ordinances to figure out just to install a new sign? These businesses have to hire their own legal team to get new or replacement signs approved through town hall, and the processes can oftentimes take months. We are also aware that the town council has also discussed grant opportunities that Coventry has not taken advantage of. In this space, there are significant opportunities such as the Rhode Island Commerce Corporation's Take It Outside initiative, where post-COVID, almost $5 million was awarded across the state to local businesses, and local economic development directors help residents in identifying and applying. The EDC has led the effort to have amazing town videos from CGI, as Councilwoman Ludwig earlier mentioned, and the gift card program, but it has taken far too long to get these initiatives over the finish line. These are the types of projects an EDC coordinator could achieve in less than a few months and then move on to other programs. The aforementioned list of businesses contacts in Coventry that doesn't exist, guess who? An EDC person. To provide a comparison, other surrounding towns have a budget for business development and not only have an EDC director, but additional business coordination staffing assistants and aides. They have multiple town staff positions for marketing, social media, liaisons, and culture and tourism. Coventry has none of those positions. Within their EDC type roles, the director is a go-to person for businesses and helps them through local ordinances and town processes. On West Warwick, and for the record, I'm actually originally from West Warwick, so this kind of stinks because I've been a much longer resident of Coventry, and this is my home. So our neighbors next door, they describe their role of the economic development director. And this is right off their website. West Warwick prides itself on supporting local businesses. We believe that the town's role is to help businesses succeed and to eliminate unnecessary barriers, regulatory or otherwise, that slow progress and growth. To do that, we offer a single point of contact with the town planner and economic development coordinator, Marilyn Shellman. No business is too large or too small. The planner is here to assist businesses through all phases of business development, funding, and permitting. We will work hard to understand your business so that you can get the assistance you need. The town wants to be a partner in your business success. When your business succeeds, the whole town succeeds. Pretty good statement. The EDC voted on March 15th to respectfully ask the town manager and the council to strongly consider a new position in the upcoming budget for an economic development coordinator. While we are not here to suggest a specific salary, a simple search that we conducted on salary.com found a rough average of approximately $50,000. We have included a sample, and I believe Ms. Amatrano provided everyone a copy. It's a sample job description drafted from, we basically cobbled together duties from area EDC positions, just again, to give you a rough idea of what that position could look like. To summarize, the Coventry EDC strongly recommends the council include a full-time dedicated economic development town staff position in next year's budget. Thank you for your time and attention. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions or discussion from members of the council? Councilor Ludwig, I don't know if you had any comments you want to make first. Councilor Shockley.
Thank you. I appreciate this. I will say I can't say at this moment whether or not we would be able to fulfill this request, but I do wonder, would you plan on having it be under the planning director? Or directly under the town manager?
Yep. Thank you for the question. Appreciate it. So I think that our commission's goal here is to just get the position funded. The structure would fall under the town manager and the councilors, at their pleasure. We just see a really, the focus and the importance is to have somebody where they sit and who they report to,
Yeah, I will say just as a comment, looking at the survey, it does seem that even people who thought that this was not a position that they would support, their reasoning does kind of go towards supporting it. You know, even if it's, you should listen to your small business owners, you should listen to your local artists. We need someone to listen. We need that person there who can listen. And if it's space in the local community they're looking for to help establish that space and help them get set up and changing out the local artists. If it's that they want to be able to rent retail space and try to get, I think someone put kind of a group of businesses that had similar sorts of business models. You need someone to go talk to that building manager to say, hey, I know a bunch of people who are all looking to rent. Can we work something out so they can, I'm just kind of putting some examples there. But like I said, it seems as if most people, even if they thought this position wasn't necessary, they then spoke to how much they needed someone in this position in order to get started. You know, I definitely see it in Coventry. We have space abounds. I think we've had quite a few small businesses that have even seemed to be thriving, and still the opportunity wasn't there to get their business out enough that they could survive in the current climate. So like I said, I don't know that we will have the opportunity to put it in this budget, but I do think it's a great idea.
Thank you for those comments.
Councilman Pasqua.
Economic development has been a big priority of mine, as a lot of people know, and I love this idea. One of the things that I hear often from business owners in Coventry is the frustration about processes and just kind of a scattered sort of system that has no organization. And I think this could really bring that together and help out a lot. You know, I've been saying since day one, if we want to relieve some of the pressure on the residential taxpayers, we need to really boost that commercial side of our town. So anything that I can support that would bring our commercial up to help out with the levy, I'm all about. So this, you know, if we can afford this, I would absolutely support it. This is great.
Thank you.
If I may.
Manager Perillo.
Mr. Pimentel, did you say that West Warwick's town planner is the EDC person as well?
It
A
appears,
dual role?
it appears it's a dual role. I mean, that's just one example. It was more so the spirit of the message on their website that I was trying to capture. But yeah, other Kent County, you know, municipalities and very neighboring have individuals that are just focused on an EDC type position. And in some cases, there are multiple people in that department.
And I think, I mean, as a cursory look, I agree it's needed. Obviously, funding is the question.
When isn't it?
Correct. And it's whether we can do it in a full-time capacity, a part-time capacity, giving those responsibilities to someone else for additional duties. I think there may need to be some combination of how we approach it, but I think the focus has to happen as how we're going to move forward with a position like that, for sure.
And again, if I could just add really just one thing, you know, every time we meet, you know, I walk away from our meeting saying there is just so much that could be in this town. And there needs to be a shepherd, someone that can carry forward, you know, entrepreneurs like people who want to do business here. And, you know, the processes can be burdensome, but to some people, even if they weren't, they seem burdensome. And just to have someone that can say, I got you, come in, talk to me, do this, do that, and you're good to go.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's what's
I've
needed.
watched the meetings over the last couple of months, and I agree. We do need someone. In what capacity that is, I don't know right now, but I do believe that the future of Coventry is going to need someone like that, just to lead people through the processes, like you said, is very important. A liaison to the various departments that are needed to start a business here, to get things done here, would be beneficial for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion from members of the council. I just want to say thank you to you and the commission for taking this initiative. I think it takes a lot to pull together a proposal like this and do this all on your own and present in front of the council. I give you a lot of credit and I appreciate your contributions to the town. I think the results of your survey and your proposal here speak to a larger issue that I've always pounded the drum about, which is this town has a PR problem. has a communication problem. And I think that people, and an identity problem as well. Something I always refer to when I talk about what Coventry is today is my grandparents live on Old North Road, and my grandfather was a contractor, and he bought a plot of land, and he took my grandmother and her father to go see the plot before they built it. And my great grandfather said, "You're taking my daughter to the middle of nowhere." And Old North Road, we know now, is on the border of West Warwick and one of the most urbanized areas. I think there's some people that still think we're that town that was just 10,000 people in the late 60s. Now we're 36,000 with a robust, debatable center of town that has economic development and infrastructure there. So I do think there's need to consider how a function like this is supported. So I appreciate you bringing it forward and getting the conversation rolling, especially here at budget time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, we'll move on now. Folks want to pull out their budget binders. Engineering is on the top as a mistake. We heard them last week during budget hearings, so we'll move on to general government. Just give folks a moment to get their binders open to the right page. Yep, we're going to start with town council. So 110. And Mr. Savetti, if you want to pull up a chair at one of the tables. While Mr. Savetti is getting settled at the table, any comments or questions from members of the council on Department 110 Town Council? Councilor Ludwig.
I just had a quick question on payroll taxes. I was just wondering what that referred to, because I thought salaries and all of that was just for the counselors. So what does the payroll taxes go to?
You talk at the mic, Mr. Savetti. Thank you.
Yes, so the payroll taxes would be the social security and Medicare tax that the town has to match on all
Oh,
wages.
just the matching. So there's nothing in addition, no other benefits. et
No, that's
cetera?
a 7.65% of the total wages.
Okay, thank you.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Just a quick question on the actual salaries of the town council. So if I do the math, it's 4,500 times 5, 22,500. But we were showing 24,098 in the proposed.
Yeah, I believe there's a additional stipend that gets paid to council president.
Council
I
President.
thought that's what the town council president 1,000 right below is.
Should be.
So you're not getting the 25,098.
That's coming out of your paycheck. The difference?
Hey, I'm just throwing it out there. It's just,
So what was the number you got?
it's 22,500, which is what you see in the approved FY 2021 column. That's, I would expect that exact same setup. That's all. I mean, it's not saving much, but
Mhm.
it's saving something.
Yeah, I will double check that. Check into it.
Thank you. Councilmember Shockley.
I'm making an assumption, but don't want to do that, that during this budget, we won't have the 2 additional council members that
Oh, no,
have
we
been
will.
approved.
Oh,
No.
no, we won't.
That's not till
No,
FY,
'cause we won't
not
be
till
able
FY
to-
25.
24, 25. Perfect. Just wanted to make sure that that wasn't something that was going to have to be accounted for.
Thanks for calling that out. Mr. Savetti, any additional comments? All right, we'll move on to town manager, 210.
Thank you, Madam President. The obviously, I didn't really play a role in putting this together since I wasn't here. So I have been working with Mr. Savetti to go over this department in general, and there are some definite reductions that I'd like to put in here as we finalize this budget for April 11th. Regarding travel and meals, dues and subscriptions. I want to level fund all of those increases that are in here now. I don't see a need for it right this second, so I want to level fund all those additions that were made. Also in this department is the economic development, which we weren't sure where it was housed. I thought it was a separate entity, but it isn't. It's housed under the town manager now. So whatever we ultimately decide to do with the economic development coordinator proposition would be funded through that line item. I just don't know what that is right this second.
So when you're saying level fund, travel and meals, you're talking about just 1,000 and then dues and subscriptions back down to 15.
Yes, yeah, we're gonna make all those little changes. Mrs. Savetti, I'll make those changes. Everything else is, will be the same.
Mr. Savetti, any additional comments?
No, none at this time.
Members of the council, questions, comments? Vice President LeBlanc.
There's a line, advertising for budget. For FY 2024, there's nothing there. I thought we would still at least maybe publicize something about the budget that the town council eventually does approve. And right now we don't have any money for that. So I just didn't know if we should be having some expense there. Just wanted to call it out.
Are you thinking something as big as a mailing, or would you think of something else? Just to get a ballpark of what we can tell the town manager to go back and consider for an amount in that.
It's just up for discussion. I mean, ultimately the budget's actually the people's budget, it's not ours. So I want to communicate it to them, what the council ultimately approved. So just wanted to open it up for discussion. That's all.
I'd support that. Even something as simple as, reminder ads or just something that a lot of people see. And I think that can be done for several $100s in a couple different places. That sounds appropriate.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
I
Councilmember
agree as
Shockley?
far as the paid for, putting it out in the reminder. And I think because it's budgetary, we might be allowed to use that reverse call system and maybe just let people know the budget has been approved and can be found at coventryri.org.
Or even the
Or-
notifications for the public hearings. I think we have to
Yeah.
pay for the messages on the one that's the non-emergency system.
So I don't know if we want to just put like $1,000 or $2,000 there for that one.
Okay.
Okay,
Just wanted to call it out.
thank you. Any additional comments, questions? Councilman Pasqua.
Yeah, I agree with all that. We have several hearings in May coming up for the budget, and being that the council has the ability to adopt this budget themselves, I want to do everything we can to advertise the ability for the residents to come forward and give feedback, even more so than we have in the past, because there potentially might not be a referendum based on question 14.
Mhm.
So it's important to me to get that out there.
Thanks. Any additional comments, discussion, questions? All right, we'll move on to 310 Town Clerk. Madam Clerk, you just want to give an overview, anything in particular with your budget?
So the one thing I want to point out is that we do have a retirement that will be coming up in December of this year. So there is a payout line. That would be the deputy town clerk. I also put in for a temporary employee because I'd like to get the person in training prior to her leaving. And then we tried to offset a couple of areas to make up the difference of that payout. Those are the only changes.
Councilmember Shockley?
So just to be clear, the temporary employee is actually the person you would be hiring, but before you eliminate the current town clerk's position through retirement.
Yes, person would come in, would train prior to the deputy leaving.
Okay. And can I ask, just based on the fact that I don't know up until this point, what is your advertising budget used for?
My advertising budget would be from multiple advertisements. It advertises for probate. It advertises for if there's a job opening in town. It advertises for the budgets, the public hearings that we have. It advertises for boards and commissions. It's a big wealth of.
Perfect, thank you. Don't know that open roles make sense in the town clerk's purview. I don't know if that's how they do it in other towns or if that sort of thing should go under HR, but other than that, thanks for making sense of it, whether it's.
Manager Perlow.
Yes, I'd have to talk to Cheryl. I'm not sure why that would be you as opposed to Cheryl when it comes to
Okay.
appointments for job openings and so forth. I'll follow up on that.
Well, every advertisement goes through me. That's what goes through me, just the advertisement. So if we advertise a bid for in town, it goes through me. Cheryl gives me the ad and then I put it out in that advertisement budget that I have.
So all departments townwide
All
go
of
through
them.
you.
Yes.
Okay.
Councilman Shaka, do you have another comment? Councilman Pasqua.
So I kind of want to circle back now to the town manager advertising. If you advertise hearings and all of that, then we can just count it out of that line item, I would imagine, instead of needing it in the town manager line item. Seems like it's just duplication
Yeah,
for no reason. Yeah.
that makes sense.
Can I just point out though that there's a reduction here, like there's 20% reduction versus what seems to have been used last year,
I agree.
25 to 20. So are we even going to be able to consider the communications we were just talking about on the manager side if you already are at a reduction in the budget? It's a question, I guess, for Joanne. So I'm sorry. It looks like the proposed budget is 20K.
Mhm.
That's 5K less than the year prior.
Mhm.
So do you even have enough right now on everything you did versus the previous fiscal year, let alone the additions that we're asking for in terms of the upcoming budget cycle?
Normally, well, I have the funds to pay for the public hearing ads. That's what if you want to add something additional, I would have to increase my line item. I wouldn't be able to reduce it.
So your request was 25.
Mhm.
Are you saying the reduction to 20 is already not going to make everything you need?
It should make everything that we need based upon last year's budget.
Okay.
Right, if I can, if we looked at what where she stands current fiscal year and what took place last fiscal year, that's why it was reduced to the 20,000. We thought the 25,000 was overstated in
Okay.
the previous year, so after our meeting with the interim town manager, with the director, we felt that going to 20 would cover all those costs, and I think they would cover depends the magnitude that you wanted to do with advertising the budget. If you're just putting the announcements in local papers and those things, we thought it would still fit under there. That's why you didn't see an advertisement budget in the
Thank
town
you.
manager side. But obviously, if you want to go to different extents and different levels of getting the mailings out to residents, everything else, then I think you would have to put additional line item in the town manager's budget.
Councilman Pasqua.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the approved 21 and then the budget book for 21 for advertising. I mean, it's 32,000 versus 21, and then in 22 is 25 versus 15 estimated anyway. So it's, 20,000 seems reasonable.
I think part of it too is you're never going to know how many public hearings you're going to have in 1 year, or how many open positions, or I think it's no guarantee. That's why you see it kind of go up and down. Vice President LeBlanc.
I guess I just got to address the elephant in the room. This particular department went down 306,000. It's because we removed the land trust. As you can see, FY21 is 200,000. FY22 is 150. FY 23, it was 350, and this year it's 0. Just if you could provide some clarification on that.
Yeah, so what we did is the way the town, at least appears historically recorded this, when tax realty stamps, I think I referred to, when property is sold in transactions, a portion of those realty stamps go to the state, a portion stays in the town, approximately 50-50, let's say. That 50% that stays in the town, then half of that goes to the land trust fund. So what we did was simply eliminate showing that revenue in the town's budget and also showing an expense, because it's really not an expense to the town. It's just when that revenue is coming in, you always recognize the revenue in full in your general fund, and then we're showing a transfer out to the land trust fund. We said, why are we showing it that way when by town ordinance or by town charter, you have to put that money into the land trust. So that revenue should show directly in the land trust. It shouldn't be part of your general fund. So when you look at the revenue component, you'll see we reduced your revenue by the 350,000, which is the matching expenditure here. And we're only now recognizing in the town budget the portion that gets to stay in your general fund for general fund operations.
Appreciate it.
Any further comments, questions, discussion?
I'm so sorry. Is your hand up? Yeah. Okay.
Counselor Ludwig?
So I'd still be, even though it sounds like we're okay to reduce to the 20, I'd still be in favor of having those additional funds that we talked about, just a couple $1,000s on what we can do to bolster. So I just want to make sure that's clear that I'm still okay with that. It seems like others are.
I'm still good. I don't care if it's the town manager budget or this one, just has to be somewhere.
Agreed.
Thank you. All right, moving on to municipal court, Department 420. I don't know who kind of owns this. Mr. Perillo or Mr. Savetti, if you have any comments or.
No, I don't believe there are any changes to what's been proposed.
Any discussion from members of the council? Okay, moving on to probate. Department 510.
Same thing, no changes as proposed.
Members of the council. Right, canvassing. Would you like to come on up? Department 320. You want to come and sit with Bob? Welcome, just speaking to the mic for us.
Just want to introduce Billy. He's the chairman of the Board of Canvassers. Our new manager, and you've met? Yes. Yes. Okay. Right. So, the only thing you took from us was $1,000 each from advertising and supplies that I can see of. I do have only one question. I didn't put in for all-day referendum for 23. I mean, this year we've got one in the budget from last year. So the one next year, I didn't put one in just in case you don't get your budget passed and then you'll have to do an all-day referendum. Should we add that back in?
I think it needs to be budgeted. Yep.
Okay, so that would be same thing as a town-wide referendum at 6150. That would cover. So you'd have to put an additional one of that in there. Okay.
Anything else of note?
That's the only three.
Councilmember Shockley.
Can I just ask, is the townwide referendum for if we do the school bond vote, or is that?
That one will be in there. We've already got a.
Yep, is that,
special-
that's what that is in the budget line? The
Yes.
townwide referendum is for that vote.
That will
Okay.
be for this, because you're not having until September. So
Right.
that one's covered that.
Perfect.
But then next.
Nope,
actually,
I
no,
understood what you were
no.
saying. I understood. I just wanted to check on that line item.
Yeah.
And yes, I agree that there needs to be a line item in there for an all-day referendum. You got a budget for
Yes.
just in case.
And I had asked that question. I never got an answer, but I should have known.
Other members of the council? Councilman Pasqua.
I agree with doing that. I mean, we can't speculate that, there won't be a referendum. I don't want to make it look like we, have an idea of it wouldn't be, because it's an
Yep.
option that it could be. So we should budget for it.
Okay. Have you hired that position that was budgeted for last year, that clerk position?
I do have someone that is working in the office right now. I do have to check to see when her.
Because I
funds-
noticed you didn't budget for it again for next
I
year.
did.
Oh, here it's showing zeroed out. Clerk
That-
under temporary.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to be sure we're prepared budget wise, because I know that your retirement is on the horizon,
25.
25. And my. As,
No, 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 no.
and I just on a serious note, as someone who has a keen understanding of canvassing, I can't speak for the rest of the council. My preference would be that you have someone full-time during something like we have a budget referendum, a bond referendum.
Yes.
Next year's election cycle. To me, there should be someone full-time, so that way when beginning of 25 comes, you're gone, that person's now been through an election full-time with you, because there's no school that teaches you how to run elections.
No.
It's all passed down knowledge. And to me, this is a vital position, especially with the rhetoric that we have going on today. So my preference would be that, I don't know how you can work it out with Mr. Savetti and the town manager, but this department, in my opinion, should have 2 people in it full-time. The fact that we're 36,000 and growing, that's a lot of people for one person, especially you were at the clerk level to manage. So and not to mention, I think there is a certain state law about the appointment for this position has to come to the council. I think it's Coventry and 2 other committees. So I just want to be mindful of that and make sure that that whoever's coming in has an opportunity full-time to train in that respect. So,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
When President Lima asked you the question, you said, yes, you did hire somebody. Mr. Savetti said that it's included in the temporary employees line.
Right
Um,
now, she's,
How many hours is that person currently putting in?
she does anywhere from 10 to 20 hours a week right now.
Okay.
And doing the things of, like, right now, we're in the middle of NCOA, National Change of Address. And she's handling all of that. She's coded and done stuff like that. So she also works another job. But when I really need somebody full-time would be June of 24. I can handle when we start doing declarations and all the way on out. That one definitely full-time
Mhm.
at that point. I could still work the part-time up until declarations.
Yeah. If we could have, personally, I like to see the numbers worked out, so that way this isn't a huge hit that we have to plan for FY 25. So if you could work with Mr. Savetti to make sure we're ready to roll when it's time to hire that second full timer, I'd appreciate it. Members of the council, any further discussion on canvassing? Mr. Savetti, Mr. Perlow, any comments? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Moving on to finance. Mr. Savetti, if you just want to give us an introduction here. Department 610.
So again, you have the finance budget. Finance director salary in there was an increase. I could tell you, you know what you were paying in the past, and in addition to what you were paying salary, the town incurred in excess of 40,000 additional billings for your audit. So my opinion, if you get a qualified person in that position that's keeping the records up to date, you shouldn't be paying your auditors more than what your proposal was for. But this year, like I said, this for the 2021 audit, the extra billing from the audit firm was approximately $40,000. So you consider that when you're looking at the budget. But they're, meeting with the town manager again, he just started, but currently this budget did not include a deputy finance director, but there's discussion that, we should look to include that position back in here, maybe not at the rate that it was in here previously, and possibly some different roles, but more looking for somebody else in this department to assist with, looking at bid specifications, preparing bids, so that we have all that stuff, uniform throughout the town. So that could be one of the roles. So there may be, again, in the town manager's final budget, getting it ready for the next meeting, maybe an adjustment to that to try to keep that position, put that position back in again at a lower amount. But I think everything else is, pretty straightforward. We try to estimate some of the increases in the insurance rates, although we did get the, for health insurance, we got our quote that it's going to be a 5.8% increase, dental, 5.1% increase. As far as casualty and general liability, they were still working on those calculations. So we've recently provided some information. Ms. Wilcox had just provided me some information yesterday that I need to finalize and get that to the trust as well, just updating some of the records. So we did put some increase in here as an estimate, but everything else I think we tried to keep pretty similar to what we had in the past, balanced budget.
And professional services.
Professional services, a big portion of that is trying to have Keystone come in and do some training so that we have everybody adequately trained on the accounting system so that we know what its capabilities are and make sure we're using it to its fullest extent. Again, a software is as good as the people that are using it, in my opinion. So, I know there was discussion of this software not being the best thing, and maybe there are better ones out there, but I think it's, the people there are terrific. They worked well with us. If we have any issues, we contact them, they contact us back. So we like to just get some, proper training, and obviously new town manager coming in, have everybody do some training overall. So that's a big component of that, professional services.
Mr. Prillo.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Obviously, finance is critical to the future of this town. Mr. Savetti's done a tremendous job since he's been here. And I think reimagining his department to the specifications that we're looking at now, eliminating the deputy finance director, adding another purchasing clerk, will solidify the foundation that we're trying to rebuild. That salary at 125 is very consistent with what's around the state. Other municipalities that are smaller than us are getting more than that. So I think that 125 is definitely justified for the amount of work and the size of our community. And I think the people that are there now have been great. They've been through a lot of transitioning over the last 3 months. They've buckled down and they've done what Mr. Savetti has asked them to do in his interim capacity. And I think, again, that department is really going to take strides forward once we get that third additional clerk in there. Thank you.
Councilmember Shockley.
So I'm wondering why in the line, or I believe it's the payroll, insurance administrator, and senior accountant, under the change from 23 to 24, it's not showing any number there, just as we try to determine what our total change is, because that's a pretty significant, wasn't budgeted the year before. Seems like instead of budgeting one job, we're budgeting another job. We've changed the title.
Yeah, that's correct. There was a new position that was created. We had a payroll clerk was hired, I believe, back in November. And then when the former payroll clerk came back to that position. You know, she'd switched to a position, came back to that position. There was currently an advertisement out there for a senior accountant. So the payroll clerk that was the payroll clerk at that point now stepped into that senior accountant's position. So that is a new position, and on the spreadsheet, it's just gonna be the formula didn't carry over. So I will correct that as far as the dollar change, but that's why you see it on different line items there.
Councilman Pasqua? Oh, I thought you had your hand up. Vice President Blank?
One comment and one question. I know last year, I think there was some discussion on increasing the finance director's salary to a similar tune. But we also had a deputy finance director at the same time. So we're essentially increasing the finance director's role, but we're decreasing a $93,000 position and then a $44,000 position on the deputy treasurer. So that's why I'm pretty comfortable with that increase. And then one question. For me, salaries are internal, full-time people. So I just didn't know where your services were budgeted in this. Are you, so when we get like the budget to actuals, would your time be included in the top section, the salary section, instead of professional services? Since you're a 1099 and not a full-time employee? Just
Yeah, at this point, to be
clarification.
honest, I haven't been compensated. I haven't submitted any bills. I haven't done any billing.
Can you keep it that way?
As long as my
We'll
wife,
absolutely
my wife
take
keeps
that.
working. I'll keep it.
We certainly have the work, so.
Um,
But yeah,
So yeah, we could certainly, we can post that up there to put it in those line
the
items.
salary
so it'll be
lines. Yeah, I
comparison
just-
Rather than being professional, we can
edification.
allocate it to both, finance director as well as the deputy finance director positions, put it up in that component for now.
if you want to keep deferring the bill, that's great.
Can you submit an invoice, Bob?
I will.
Thank you. Any other, Council Ludwig?
I would agree. You need to submit an invoice. That's absolutely reasonable. Okay, so just back to the overall salary. I mean, I'm gonna have to explain to people why I approved, almost an 18% raise in 1 year. And I know we said a couple reasons here. It would be very helpful for me to understand some more background. You mentioned it's comparable to some towns. Do we know what towns? It's gonna be very hard for me to explain. Well, we took out the deputy finance director and, took this person out and then raised this salary. It's kind of moving money around, but at the end of the day, this position, I mean, that's a pretty substantial raise for me to explain to people. So I need some better talking points. The 40K that you mentioned in terms of the extra money that we had to use last year for extra personnel, that would be fabulous, just to have a few, bullets on, based on these positions that were brought in the following times. You spent 40K on this. You're not going to need that this year. That's the level of transparency that I feel like would be very valuable in explaining this high of a raise.
I know
Thank
one
you.
for sure. Last month, Westerly was advertising for finance director 125 to 130 for the town of Westerly. That's one, but I'm sure I'll get some others as well.
Just a couple bullet points, because first of all, I absolutely think we should pay people appropriate amounts. Public, private sector, that doesn't matter to me. I see the good work you're doing. I have to be able to explain it to my residents. Thank you.
Vice President LeBlanc?
For me, I mean, just looking at the all the salaries in this department, we're saving $44,000. And then I believe you had brought up, we got extra bill from our outside auditors because the work wasn't good when they were auditing. That was another 40,000, correct? So essentially, even with the $18,000 raise for that one line item, we still saved over $88,000.
I think if
potentially.
we add back in the payroll coordinator, we're not.
Say it again?
I think if we were to put the payroll, insurance admin, senior accountant increase, we're not saving $44,000. If I'm reading this correctly.
So I see an $18,000 increase, a $93,000 savings,
But
$44,000 savings.
look at the blank space between the 93,000 and the
No,
44.
I hear you. Hang on a second.
It may not be into the right column, but I
Yeah, but
believe the
it's still,
total.
yeah, it's still there. It is.
So if you take the
total
total,
bills, if you add up,
budget of 1,445,000 compared to the 1,483,000
yeah,
of the previous year,
exactly.
it's a $38,000 savings.
So 38 plus the 40,000 for the extra billings, we're still saving close to almost 80K.
Correct.
Yeah, with the 40,000, I agree. I just am seeing the negating of the $44,000 position just, and not the addition of the 68,000 or $64,000 position.
It looks like it just wasn't moved over, but the math is still right. Right, is that, yeah. Yeah.
If you add it.
I agree with you. That column probably doesn't foot down, but if you foot it across, it would foot.
Right, just where I look where Councilmember LeBlanc spoke to the $44,000 savings.
Right.
That's the column where we'd see that addition, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, if I could, to Councilor Ludwig's point. So last year when there was a requested raise from the 102 to the 120 for Ms. Mills, I'd looked back at the salary research that the league puts together, and they haven't done one in, I think, a couple of years. And at 102 or one, I think Ms. Mills ranked at number 12 or 13 out of 39 municipalities for finance director salary, which if you think of where Coventry falls in terms of population, land mass, size of the budget, it's lower than what we actually are. So
13 lowest.
no, 13th out of 39 cities and towns.
Yeah.
So middle of the pack-ish.
I think professional people should be in professional roles that we need. I'm not saying I'm not supportive. I'm just
No, I
saying
just
I
more for the
appreciate
public
I
too.
appreciate your background. I would benefit from a few bullets that could help me explain this to my residents because I faced the same thing probably most of you did last year when you give any type of raise, why are they getting a raise? I didn't get a raise. Why should you get a raise? So
Mhm.
this would just be helpful for me and maybe for other counselors.
Councilman Pasqua.
So I think it's also important to understand too, nobody's actually receiving the salary right now. We're contracting out this position, but this is for a future person. So we're not giving somebody a raise. We're just making the position more competitive for recruitment.
Yes.
It's, it's not like so-and-so is doing a great job. They just got an 18% increase.
Yeah.
We're just kind
That's a
of,
good point.
sounds like that we're just going in line with industry standard right now. But I agree, we do need to explain this. That's a great point. So a little bit of more research to just better relay that point to our residents is great. It's good. Yeah.
I do hope one thing that we do again this year that was done last year that I did like was we had a one pager that was front and back that had a brief paragraph up front and then on the bottom listed kind of bullets of what this budget, whether it decreased something, whether it added a position, whether it was going to fund playground or something. That was really helpful to have. So I don't know if that's something we can work with other town staff to put together, if the assistant town manager can help, but having a one pager on the budget itself was really helpful. That, and I know that council members, we were able to take the PDF, and if someone from the public asked via email, we could just forward that along to them. We had it available at the public hearings. So I think something like that would be really helpful. Any final comments on the finance department? All right, moving on to legal solicitor 410. We did them last week.
So legal services solicitor's office, I've spoken to Solicitor Angel, and I know he'd like to recast some of those categories that are currently there. So right now that's a work in progress. I'll let him speak to that, but he'd like to kind of categorize some things differently. And the department itself, I think, is definitely underfunded and is going to need an increase to keep the present services going. So I'll let Solicitor Angel follow through on that.
So in talking with Mr. Perillo and Mr. Civetti, there are a couple of things that I've been evaluating in the department. I've not had a chance, and neither has Mr. Civetti, to really pull apart the total legal expense historically over the last few years. When I came in essentially December 1st, we were left with about a third of the budget left to spend. Based on usage And, that's, really what I have to go by at this point is the usage in, really four main buckets. You have outside counsel, you have, my general role, you have the role of an assistant solicitor assigned to planning and zoning, and you have an assistant solicitor for criminal matters. There are savings that we can achieve in the criminal area by going to more of a flat rate structure, which is the goal in this budget, or will be the goal in this budget, if not sooner. And planning and zoning is unpredictable, but usage is high. Usage is high right now, and with some of the things that we need to do to change a legislative scheme in that area, the developments that we have coming in, usage is going to stay pretty high, I would expect, for the next fiscal year. Outside counsel, when I look at the budget that's in front of you, we have a budget for a landfill attorney, a labor attorney, other contracted services. That needs to be broken down a little bit differently. The goal is to take labor matters back in-house as we have been doing. That is what we intend to do even for negotiations. I think the landfill, the rate that we're being charged by some of the outside counsels prior to my arriving is really quite high. Those arrangements have existed for a while. We're looking at arrangements at $3.75 an hour or north. We're looking to reduce those. With that said, usage is high. When I look at the reserve for claims that's in this budget, it's extraordinarily low, quite frankly, because based on the cases that I'm aware of that are outstanding prior to me coming on board, we're going to be well over that. In addition to that, when you look at the professional services line item, really, it doesn't just or shouldn't include Johnson's Pond. We have a need in other litigation for experts to be brought in for inspections, for example, in cases pending before DEM in the Administrative Adjudication Division and things of that nature. So we're going to work pretty hard over the next week or so, given, Mr. Perillo's transition in the last week and getting up to speed on the budget. We didn't dive into this. But I do think your solicitor overall number is low, and it's been flat for a long time. When I look at a comparable town in terms of population and volume of work that I see, population wise, Johnston is probably 6,000 people smaller than Coventry, for example. And I don't know, Mr. Savetti can probably drop the number on us, but it's well north of 500,000 in Johnston. What is the Johnston number, if you know?
Last audit, we probably had in excess of 600 or 700,000 spent
Yeah,
on legal costs.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about that, but I think your overall gross number, and this is what I'm going to come back to you with, is probably in the neighborhood of $535,000, which would include contingencies for claims, expert services, and things of that nature. So again, I want to sit with Mr. Perillo and Mr. Savetti and break this out a little bit differently, but that $416,000 number is not realistic. I be very candid with you. I'll live with what's given to me, but I can't control the pace of litigation and the pace of other matters like grievances and arbitrations and things of that matter, of that kind. So, that's what I can tell you. If you have questions at this point, I'm happy to take them, but we're going to recast this and get it back to you.
Vice President Blank.
I just wanted to point out for the council, if you use the estimated column, that's 7/1/22 through 3/16, we're already at 372. If you were to annualize that number, if you just use 9 months, it comes to about 496,000. So it's assuming that, every month it's the exact same amount, around $41,000. So, I mean, it's kind of speaks to some of what Solicitor Angel is saying. It gets us to about 500,000. I also question a couple of these line items like Johnson's Pond. I know that we were just in court. I think we're going to get more active there. If you look at the estimated column, it says 29,000, only budgeting 15 right now, so that doesn't really make any sense to me. But I did, and then on the Coventry landfill, I thought that the landfill kind of had its own cache of money that we were able to use. So I didn't know why we would have to budget for the Coventry landfill.
That's unclear to us at this point.
Okay, that's fair. Thanks.
As is just based on what's been paid in years past, where that money is coming from. I can tell you that most municipalities have a fourth quarter transfer function. Mr. Pearl can also speak to this as well as Mr. Savetti. That doesn't exist in the town of Coventry. Usually what happens in the fourth quarter is that finance comes to the council for an approval of fourth quarter transfers on a budget. That's not done here. So you never really get to see, if you will, how the deck is shuffled at the end of the year, whether they save money other departments and move them to shortfalls in various departments. And I'm not suggesting that's what's happened here, but based on what I can see on the bills in the last couple of years, just what I've been exposed to, and I haven't seen the universe of them yet, you're over this. You're over this. So I don't know how they did it.
Any further comments, questions? Members of the council, Mr. Savetti?
No, as far as the individual line items, again, we just, the budget was prepared. Again, Mr. Angel didn't have the time to sit down and, we didn't have time to go through this. So the budget was prepared utilizing the previous year. So we just carried forward that budget. That's why you'll see some of the line items at the same amount you saw in the past.
Thank you. Right, move on to 225. Although I'm missing this in mine. Does anyone else? Does anyone else have this? IT? I don't. Yes, I do not have that one in my. Oh, you have a copy? All right, thanks. Yeah, he did that on purpose. It's like
Spelled it from the.
stop interrupting volleyball night. All right, Cody, if you want to just or speak to this.
Yeah, sure. So essentially there's kind of 7 changes. If you want to look at it that way to the line items, 3 of them are reductions. Should be happy to hear. So I've removed 4,000 from the temporary employee line item that we had. You'll know that I added someone in last year to help with helping with the live streaming and everything. We kind of arbitrarily just added in 10,000 in that position because we didn't entirely know what we're going to use it for or how often. Looking at the calendar for next year for the meetings and everything and what we've been using them for now, I've put that down to 6,000 for estimated costs. I shouldn't go over that. So that's a $4,000 reduction. The other reduction is in professional services. I lowered that by 5,000. That's mostly due to, as Bob already mentioned, professional services. A lot of that was for Keystone for additional services and training and that sort of thing. That historically came out of my budget, and Bob's taking some of that into the finance budget moving forward. So I've moved 5,000 for mine for that. Also, I've lowered the capital lease line about 4,000. As you remember, last year I added that line item. Well, I've added most of these line items last year as we kind of broke down the IT budget more granularly. That's about over 3,500 a month. And so that comes out about 43,000 a year. Last year I put in 50,000 for expected overages. There's been no overages because of a renegotiation on that contract. So in theory, it should never go over about 43,000, but I put it in at or requested to put it in about 46, I think. Yeah. So those are the so that's the good news. Those are the reductions. So the requests I have on 3 line items, and these are mostly for hardware and software upgrades that I would like to make. Some of, and this is a broader conversation, but some of it is updates that we need to make. As some of you probably know, who we are, the Rhode Island Trust, the group who provides our cybersecurity insurance, is greatly expanding the requirements for getting cybersecurity insurance. And I don't want to go into the details of what they're requiring or where we are in that process. We can talk offline happily about any of those things. But some of those needs changes. Some of it's hardware, some of it's software. A lot of it we're already doing, and I've been progressing in the last year or so towards. So we're in good standing with their requirements now, and we will have cyber insurance moving forward. But there are changes that need to be made. So the biggest one of those is I've added requesting $15,000 added to the computer hardware and accessories line item, which is now spelled correctly. A lot of that is not for that requirement, but just for general computer upgrades. We've never really had a budgeting for a proper plan for recycle. Like I'd like to do a 3-year policy for replacing all computers and hardware for systems townwide. Basically, that means budgeting for about 1/3 of your hardware each year. This number still doesn't get us up to that, but it's closer. Basically, I'd like to be at a point where right now we almost have no computers that are under OE warranty anymore, original manufacturer's warranty, with the exception of some of the updates we've made in the previous year. A lot of the hardware budget went towards the server networking side of things. I thought that was more of a priority, but I do want to get in a place where every 3 years we have a full refresh of our computer hardware for the end users. So that's the biggest item on the requests. Another one is $6,200 I'm adding to or requesting to add to the website hosting and services. That is because we are adding, we are moving our dog license and eventually most of our town clerk services online. So we're currently implementing OpenGov service that we already have for the building permitting, moving that over to town clerk. So the dog licensing side of that will be online soon, hopefully. And then eventually we'll be using moving all town clerk or most town clerk licensing services onto that online platform as well. So most services can be done online and paid for online instead of coming in, but they certainly still could come in if they wanted to. So that's what most of that is for. Another part of the addition to that line items is another $2,000 I budgeted for additional email accounts. This isn't something I know we're necessarily doing, but there's been some talk about adding the other boards and commissions to the official at coventryri.org town email address. So I'm budgeting for that in case we do end up doing that.
Councilor Shockley.
Just on that last point, weren't we going to move to .gov at one point?
We will be moving to .gov. So my original plan was to do that in tandem with the new website that has really gained traction. So we'll probably just do that on my own with the current website as we progress, but that is something we have to do. We've made the biggest step of we own the coventryri.gov domain name, which is the hardest part of getting a .gov. So we've done that, and that will be progressing. Whether that's done in tandem with a brand new website or if the website and the email address is done at the same time, that'll be seen moving forward as circumstances change.
And then I also wanted to ask, why 3 years for the,
Generally because that's when hardware manufacturer warranties expire.
and so I don't know if, I believe this, has anyone looked into renting this sort of equipment? Can you do that? Or is it only a purchasable so that you
You
can
probably can, I can. That's something I can look into.
just 3 years seems, while I understand the warranty portion, like a very short time to own a piece of computer equipment.
Yeah, and some of that will probably be recycled down to different departments. It doesn't have to be a complete refresh, and with this budget, it couldn't be, frankly, but that would be the ideal, is what we're moving forward towards.
Vice President LeBlanc.
On your last point, I'm in full support of getting our boards and commissions town emails. It's been brought up, at least been brought to my attention that some of them are using their own personal Gmail accounts.
Yep.
And if there's ever documentation requests, it can get a little squirrely. I don't know if Solicitor Angel wants to speak to that, but
Actually, thank you. There's a piece of legislation pending right now in both the House and the Senate to change the Access to Public Records Act that would really push us in that direction. It's going to make it more onerous for board and commission members to use their private emails and make their email servers more discoverable, if you will, for APRA requests. So there's going to have to be I'm a big advocate for a migration of that, just like the council here has a town email address. I just think it's good practice when you get a request. It's easier on the clerk, it's easier on IT. But there's a bill pending right now that may in fact make that a requirement. So.
Yeah, so going back to my original comment, I am in full support. I mean, I think it was $2,000 for us to cover. Is that?
That was just me budgeting for the planning commission and zoning board, which are the two largest ones that were discussed. But if we were gonna move every board and commission onto that number would go up a lot.
Oh, a lot. Is that what you said?
Well, probably at least triple. I mean, there's what, 10 or 11
So like
boards
about
and
six, but
commissions.
about $6,000 we're talking about
Yeah.
for everybody. And I
Yeah,
mean, at the end of the day, I just feel like it's additional protection and these people are, they want to serve and I think we should protect them. So.
Counselor Ludwig.
Director Hodna, I don't know if I missed it at the very beginning. Why is the director number down by the 860? Why is that different than the 9,860 is suggested as 90?
Yeah, so again, the initial budget that was provided originally when the budgets were submitted, some of the departments had were told just to leave salaries, benefits and those items blank. So when we had first met, we had dropped a number in there. And then once we were able to meet with the interim town manager and the director, we looked at what his current salary was, and that's where we came up with the final number.
What's the current salary?
Is this another one of those situations where it looks like he's getting a reduction, but it's really just reflective of what he's actually getting in payroll?
That's correct.
Okay. So it's 90 flat then is what you're saying.
Yeah, give me 1 minute. I'll get you his current.
Yeah. You probably should. Speak now or forever hold your peace, sir. Okay. I know it's a similar question, but I just want to make sure that we're not decreasing some people and then increasing others by high percentage. Like, I just want people to make sense of it. So thank you for explaining.
Currently, it looks like he's at about 89, approximately 89 is the current salary.
Counselor LeBlanc, if I can.
Yeah.
I know last year, sorry, it's hard to see. Last year we raised this, right? I'm pretty sure we did. So I just want to make sure that number's in line with what we did last year. So, okay,
It was raised last year.
okay, thank you.
3.5%.
But overall, from what we've noticed in last week's hearings, there were people that we did agree to give raises to, but then for whatever reason, it was never reflected in payroll.
That's from what I understand, correct? If we look at what was in the budget for certain individuals versus what they're actually getting.
Like, I think specifically you told me Mr. Robillard, he got a raise in the budget, but then his payroll was never corrected to meet that raise.
Payroll was significantly less than what was in the budget.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that being addressed? Is that,
Since the new town manager came in, yes, it has.
thank you.
Vice President LeBlanc.
And I just want to be clear though, just because it's in the budget doesn't mean that that's exactly what the salary should be. To my knowledge, we want some cushion and it should be based off of their actual performance. And so if a line was, let's just say $100,000, but the person's only making 85, we would still budget around the 100 and based off of performance, they can, get up to that number, but it's not a guarantee. I just want to clarify
So
that.
we actually, this brings up a sticky situation. I don't think we have performance-based raises as articulated formally in policy.
We need to.
That's my point is, to say that we should budget for that when we don't have that as an actual policy. It's kind of cart before the horse.
I would just think we want to implement that, because
Yeah.
that's how
that-
it
that-
should
yeah.
work.
I think right now what's in the budget is what people are actually making without any performance reports or anything
But
like
I
that.
hear you.
That's their actual number.
I'd be supportive of having a discussion on that. I feel like we're so close to this budget, but I'd be in favor of having conversation on that in the future as well. I don't know if this is what you were kind of referencing, President Lima, but I would want to see kind of the structure that the town manager would use to evaluate and things like that before we put all of that in. So, thank you.
Any further comments, questions? Thank you, Mr. Hutton. Does it make sense for tax assessor and collector to come up at the same time, or do you want to go separately? All right, I have assessor are first on my list.
If-
Remember, 6:20.
If I could for just a minute, Cody, Director Houghton said something very important about your cyber risk and its insurability. There's a huge movement at the trust on this. He's out in front of it, and that's great. I just want to point that out. It's really great because we can find ourselves out of legal compliance with them, which would have an impact on premium and some other things that they may do to us if we ever have a claim. So it's great that we're out on front on that.
All right, you just want to give a general overview before questions.
All right, so in this budget, I guess the one line item that I really wanted to point out to you, and I think that stands out most, is at the bottom, tax valuation services. You'll see that in the initial budget that the department submitted, it was zero. The town manager, we're proposing 125,000. And what we're really looking to do is not so much, it's going to be an expenditure in this year, but we think we need to put this into basically a revolving fund. So what I'd like to do is in a future meeting, through the, council president and through a solicitor, propose an ordinance to the council where we would be able to transfer money out of the general fund to put it into a special revenue fund so that we have the money in place when the statistical reval and more so when the full revaluation has to happen. Meeting with the director and looking at some of the numbers, the cost of a statistical, maybe around 250,000 in that range, we do get a 60% reimbursement. But the more important one is every 10 years, we need to do a full revaluation, which looking at some surrounding communities, what they've paid. She's done some homework and chased, and that's in excess of $500,000. And we receive no reimbursement. So that's 100% cost incurred by the town. Our next full reval is in 3 years.
So essentially,
So-
in layman's terms, you're saying this is an opportunity to build it into the budget so that way we're not eating it so hard on the years we have it.
Correct. What I'm trying to do, and we're trying to do with some departments similar to what, Director Horn just said, is where we can, level budget so that we don't have big spikes in years. If we wait 3 years, now all of a sudden we have to drop a line item and it's in there 500 to 600,000. Whereas if we could put away a certain amount each year, that bill comes, now we pay it out of that reserve fund. And that's a similar idea with I know there's some other discussions with, items at DPW. We also talked about, you heard this evening, there's some departments that have retirees, so you have that payout of additional, whether it's vacation time, sick time, whatever's been accumulated in accordance with the contract. If we can start setting money aside, and then in the event that somebody does have a retirement and their budget is exceeded, we could take the money out of that side fund. And obviously, it's something that's easy to do when you're flush, with cash and you have a lot of money in reserve. So that's what we're trying to evaluate. But at least as a starting point, if we can put that line item in the budget, even though, again, for fiscal 2024, we're not expecting any cost for the reval, but we would put that money into a reserve fund, separate special revenue fund to be used for the future full revaluation that has to take place. Also, if I can just, a couple more things. So on the two salary line items, it looks like significant increases. There are increases proposed there, but not to that extent. The budget amounts that you currently see in 2023, those aren't their current salaries. The current salaries are actually higher than what was budgeted as of this date, as of March. So slightly because of step increases.
Okay. Councilmember Shockley.
Only because it seems like a larger reduction than most have under just the other salary items where we've seen reductions. The clerk's budget actually seems to be going down. Is it that we got a new clerk and we had someone who was at a higher step level, or? Okay, that makes sense, but I think it really does go to the conversation the council's been having where are there step increases built into this person's position?
This person just started this week and he's a union person.
Oh, okay, so they don't have step increases in the union?
They do, but depending when it kicks in, whatever the salary is, and then if there is a step increase next year, that would be factored into here.
Yeah, just something to factor in. I don't know if your first step is 6 months, 1 year, where it happens. So just making sure this individual, I know it seems we've worked your steps in under this current budget. I just want to make sure it's worked in for this person as well. But it does make sense that they're simply at a lower salary because they're a newer person.
Members of the council, discussion? Ms. Martini, anything else to add?
Did I just?
Yep.
Add one thing, correct me if I'm wrong, but the yellow line item, just, I thought it would come up, but professional services, you'll see it was budgeted at 1,200 last year. That's being budgeted at 15,000. And that's just for additional assistance needed in that department to help with this going on and looking at some of the, data collection and those type of items. So we're trying to help out that department. As you know, there's a lot going on there with your frozen valuations and everything else. So just to get them the assistance they need.
So there's a lot.
So that's what professional services represents.
Okay. All right, if there's no further discussion from the council, thank you. Oh, the Board of Assessment, yep. On Department 640.
Yeah, again, this has been level. It was level.
Walk
funded.
away. Let's not ask any questions on this one.
Thanks. All right. Flip now to tax collector, 630. Thank you.
Okay, so I too have a clerk that's gonna be leaving at the end of the year, so we have a payout. Printing's gone down, postage has gone down because we don't have motor vehicle bills. My budget's also gone down by a $200,000 intermunicipal agreement that I had no idea why it was in my department to begin with. Other than that, what is it? Oh, other than that, I don't really have too much to say.
We're just gonna ask, where did the 200,000 go, that agreement? We didn't lose it.
No.
Still paying them.
Yeah, so that was moved to the debt service. So it's where you see bonds, we have the bond principal bonded interest, and then we move that there. And what that represents, that's a $200,000 that gets sent over to help fund the wastewater or your sewer program.
Mhm.
So annually, that's a transfer that's pushed over to the sewer fund to help balance it. And again, why it was ever in the tax collector's department, I can't answer for previous administration, but to me, it's basically an other financing source is how you would see it in the financial statements. And so we put that with debt service. So that's in the back section of your binder.
Vice President Blake.
Is the 200 enough is my question. Because when I look at and I might be getting ahead of myself, but it is germane to the conversation because we do have it on our agenda. I see a use of reserves net position of 82,858 in the sheet that you gave me. So technically speaking, I think what you're saying is, don't we need 280,000?
Yes,
Okay.
if you were looking to fully fund it and not use reserves in the sewer fund, but I know there's been some discussion, are we gonna be increasing sewer rates or what's happening there? And so that's why rather than having the general fund take the hit for the additional, I figured we balance it by using the fund balance in the sewer fund. And then, as that whole project's being looked at or the whole departments being looked at, we could address that in the future. But for the next year's budget, I thought 200,000 would keep it where it's been.
Okay.
Ultimately, ideally, as you know, if a sewer fund's supposed to be an enterprise fund, it should be self-sufficient.
We know
So
it's
we
not.
shouldn't, right, we shouldn't be sending any money over there if it was truly an enterprise fund. In reality, the sewer fund should be paying the general fund for the time spent for the tax collector's office, collecting bills and, dealing with all the operations of it. So it should be the other way around. It's backwards here in Coventry, in my opinion.
A lot of, things happen to be that way. But there's also the idea that if you didn't have the sewer, you wouldn't have the companies coming in and utilizing it. So there could be an argument that it does make sense that the general fund is funding some of it, because if we were to just use the reserves, we would have to increase the rates to the small amount of users that we actually have, which I don't know if that's fair. Because the town is benefiting from sewers in areas where the homeowners aren't connected, but companies are. So, different train of thought.
The sewer fund. And so rather than changing it at this point and
Totally get
knowing
it.
we stay in budget.
Councilmember Shockley. Oh, sorry. Just want to make sure everybody, anything else? Any final comments? All right, thank you. Moving on to 760, Town Sergeant. I just have to ask the council if they personally have plans of seeing this filled. It was Mr. Spearman, God rest his soul. I think this is more rooted in just tradition rather than need. So I just would appreciate hearing from members of the council in terms of the future of this position.
I can ask, what was the role that person played?
They sat in the back of the room. They led the Pledge of Allegiance, the emergency evacuation plan, and then sat back down in the back of the room. Ceremonial.
I will say, while I don't necessarily feel it needs to be a position, if different residents of the community would like to take that role on for different meetings, I think it would be wonderful.
Get some veterans groups or something like
Maybe
that.
someone that we're honoring that night in some way, if they would like to lead the pledge at the beginning of our meetings, I think it would be a good way
Yeah,
to
that's a good
welcome
idea.
them more in.
Yeah, it's a good idea. But to Vice President LeBlanc.
The position is in our charter, so I just want to call that out. Section 14.01. It says the town manager shall appoint one. So
Does it say it has to be a funded position?
I'm just saying, it is in there. Hey, I'm just throwing it out.
Counselor Ludwig, did you have your hand up? No? Okay.
Hey, it actually says pleasure of the town manager.
Okay. Moving on to service function departments, Coventry Housing Authority. I think this is for the back. $965. Right ahead of Citizens Advisory Committee. Level funded. I believe this falls under Julie Letty over at the Housing Authority. That committee's full. She did? No, we honored her for an anniversary. 25 years. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a work anniversary. Yeah. Vice President LeBlanc.
Maybe it's just because the column's not completely accurate, which I know there's been a disclosure, but if you look at estimated, it's only $452. Do we really need a budget $4,000? Just questioning. If you go to the estimated column from 7/1/22 through March
Mhm.
16th of 23, there's total expenses of $452. We are saying that we're gonna budget 4,000. I don't know if 4,000 is necessary, but I don't know if we need to change it.
Yeah,
Well,
we can look into the details of this, obviously get more, again, it was put in as a balanced budget at this point, but
my question there would be one, how often do they meet? Maybe they didn't meet as much, or if they meet regularly. And two, I know we had issues last year with certain boards getting stipends. So I just would want to double check on that. I don't know if they're owed stipends still, or I know this is not.
I'll reach out to Julie.
Thank you. Councilman Pasqua.
So the state has this big housing package that they're putting through. And so I don't have all the details of it, but I'm wondering if there would be any impact to the housing authority in this and what that would make this commission meet more than it does.
So
that we need to
this
prepare for.
board only governs Manchester Circle, the development on 117 before Naughty Oak Baptist Church over there. This is specifically that affordable or elderly housing. I think Julie reports more to the state than anything else. So, and I don't know that anything that would be built from this affordable housing legislation would report through her specifically, like where they have to fill out applications, people with special needs and those
Gotcha.
kind of, but you guys can correct me if I'm wrong to my left. Any further comment, discussion? All right, next Citizens Advisory Committee. This, I will point out, this committee hasn't met for several years, but if we're okay with leaving it for now. Councilman Pasqua.
So we've talked about reviving the traffic calming committee. I'm not unfamiliar with it as far as, I don't know if there was any compensation. I know there's some town employees that are on it. And then there was some citizens, but maybe, I don't know if it would be necessary, but repurposing this stuff towards that.
I think,
instead.
yeah, I think we want to be careful about, I think we get down a slippery slope when we talk about stipends for board members, because then another board could say, well, why doesn't my board merit getting a stipend? So if anything, I think this could go towards, say they needed, it depends on what the traffic and common committee turns into. And if they need clerk services or stenographer or something to that effect, but I want to stay away from the which boards and commissions get stipends conversation personally. Councilor Ludwig.
I support that as well because it's it's a slippery slope with all the groups we have. I thought, I don't know if Councilor LeBlanc knows this. I thought Citizens Advisory Committee was also in the charter as a group that we had to have appointed.
I don't believe it's in the charter, but I remember interim Mr. Wazika, town manager, he wanted to start one.
Okay.
And then it was when the budget kept on getting voted down, I think about 3 years ago. And he was trying to just get the public to like, what do you want? You know what I mean? So I don't think it's an actual.
This is one of
board.
those established by a resolution about 10 years, 5-6 years ago. Just like the Traffic Common Committee, that is not in our charter. That was started by resolution in 2011.
Take it out. 0.
All right, anything else? Sewer Enterprise Funds. This is a separate attachment we were given. Mr. Savetti, turn it over to you.
Yeah. So again, just a, little notation at the bottom that we did this on a cash basis of accounting, but as you know, with the financial statements, it will be a full accrual basis of accounting. Primary differences would be down at the bottom section where you see the debt service payments. Those debt service payments represent the principal and interest component. Obviously, on a full accrual basis of accounting, the principal portion would be applied towards the loan outstanding, so the bonded debt or the balance due to town of West Warwick under the intermunicipal agreements. And then what would be added if this was a full accrual basis, we would add in here a depreciation line. But currently, I don't have the detail of what those assets are, so I don't know what the depreciation would be or, what estimate to even put in the financial statements. So what you have, and again, thanks to Director Hool for assisting with this and putting it together, coming up with the user fee and the assessment fees. That was the estimate based on the information we had as of beginning of the week. So again, timing issues that you would have, our billing, the last quarter of the billing for the sewer use takes place in the next fiscal year. So technically we'll have the last quarter from this billing would be in next fiscal year, and the last quarter on the billing that we're going to do in September would be fiscal 25. Pretty much a washout. Sewer assessment, which includes the assessment and the interest component. So you see the budget of $740,974. Again, that's an estimate based on what we currently know. So you have residents that when they have their sewer assessment, they have the ability to pay it up front. Well, currently it's financed over a 20-year period. I know there's some ordinances that may be changing that. But that's what's going to be billed out or estimated to be billed out. So obviously, if there's new connections and additional ones that, come in next fiscal year and they want to pay off or pay in full, it would be a higher dollar amount. But as Vice President mentioned, you'll see the line in red, use of reserved or the net position. So that's basically the number we backed into to get us with a balanced budget. So just above that, you see the transfer. We just talked about the 200,000, then plus the 82,858 use of reserve fund balance gives you the total estimated operating revenues of 2.6 million approximately. The expenses, obviously various line items where you see professional services, operating expenses, the 780,000, that includes the 4 quarterly installments that we have to pay to the town of West Warwick. And that's pretty much it. Again, I tried tracking down budgets for the last couple of years. I couldn't locate anything. Speaking with Director Hool, she hasn't seen anything in the last couple of years. So this is the best estimate we could guess at this time for next year's budget.
Vice President LeBlanc.
So one thing I just wanted to mention, reviewing this budget was actually part of the Auditor General's, one of his recommendations related to the sewer program when he did his review back in 2019. He actually had told the town back then to develop an annual operating plan budget for the sewer fund and that it should be adopted by the town council as part of our annual budget process. So I really appreciate you actually providing this to us. I think it's a step in the right direction. I don't like the use of the 82,000. Do you happen to know what the net position is?
The most recent audited financial statements, I believe, showed an unrestricted fund balance of approximately $6 million, 6.1 million.
Agree with you on that, but it also showed 32 million of fixed assets that I don't believe is an accurate reflection of the fixed assets.
But that wouldn't be part of the unrestricted number because the fixed asset is a component of the net position that's net invested in capital asset.
I understand, but how are you going to write them off?
It would, again, it would come out of the separate net position number. It wouldn't come out of the 6 million. There's a separate net position figure.
Yep.
That is the total of the fixed assets, the value of the fixed assets less the debt.
Mhm.
That's included in your net position that shows net
I
investment.
understand, but what if it exceeds that amount?
Then that line item is going to be reduced further.
Would have to.
We can look.
Yeah,
We can
we
look at
can
it.
look at it together, but I don't like using the 82,000 personally. It kind of forces our hand on rate increases. And I don't know what our rate increase is for our tax increase. So that's just me though. Just want to call it out.
And again, I think, what people have to look at too, there's discussion, could we just take the cash out of our sewer fund and use it to pay for some sewer projects or different things? When you look at the last audited financial statement, which was again, June of 2021, that 6 million that I just mentioned, that's not cash. That's all your receivables. That's everything that's out there. And keep in mind, when you're allowing taxpayers with assessments to pay over a 20 or 30-year period, that cash isn't sitting there, but yet that is part of the unreserved net position that I just mentioned. So your cash position was significantly less than that. And in actuality, there wouldn't be any cash if you paid back the general fund for what we're showing as what we consider a due from or a liability on the sewer fund. I believe that was in excess of 600,000. So
Yeah. Again, I don't think that the net position is currently accurate. I think we still owe on the town hall annex building because the sewer fund was going bankrupt and they needed cash. So I'm pretty sure we still have 3 or 4 more years paying for the collateralization of the annex building. So again, I don't think dipping into the quote net position isn't a smart move.
Any further discussion from members of the council on the sewer enterprise fund? Councilmember Shockley?
I think you already discussed how normally this would be there, but when looking at debts, knowing at what point they might fall off would be helpful. Just so that we have a better idea of how long this particular item may or may not have to be budgeted for.
yeah, Steve Massaroni, our financial advisor, they're currently working on an updated debt service book, but I can email or get to the town clerk and circulate to everybody the most recent debt service book that we have, which you'll see in there, all of the town's bond obligations as well as the wastewater obligations to West Warwick as well as bonds, and it shows you the future maturities. So I'll get that circulated tomorrow.
I would also mention that there's potential for additions to debt because if West Warwick decides to do an improvement, that could be, let's just say 15 million. We would owe 22% of that amount. So even though some might fall off, you might have some additions.
Any further discussion, members of the council? With that, we'll move on to E, review of one-time expenses list. So council leadership had asked Mr. Savetti, when pulling together the budget, just be cognizant when we're talking with department heads of items that could be considered one-time expenses that ARPA could help offset. And you'll see these here. So we just wanted to bring this to the council's attention to review and consider for allocation. Would this need resolution for you to authorize the spending for this? Okay, so just throwing that out there procedurally, just for discussion this evening. So if And again, too, it would be great to know tonight that if you're okay with this list and slapping ARPA on it. Just need to know that direction, so I know whether or not to bring a resolution or not, or what changes you do have. Yeah, sure. Counselor Ludwig, I don't know if you have any feedback on this list.
I had a couple of questions. So I thought we talked about the K-9 vehicle. I thought they were getting some type of grant or something from the police department, the first item on here.
We did make that part of the grant application, yes. Timing on that, though, was unknown at this point, so we would probably have to see if we got the grant first before we would use any opera money for that, because obviously you can't do both, so
Right.
we'd have to see what the grant timing is, which I think is not going to be till the beginning of 24 at the earliest. And we can't pay back ARPA, correct, if we do use it, yes.
So I'd be fine personally to use ARPA on a few of the items, not on all of the items. I think the hard part is we have so many people that submitted requests for things that they thought would be beneficial for the community. And a lot of these things weren't on that list that we reviewed several months ago. So
These were just things pulled from what was originally part of a budget request,
yeah.
not
So-
not a capital. Yeah.
Yeah, agree. So I would not be in favor of using, $300,000 for one-time items. I would be okay with taking a look at the capital improvement plan and deciding whether some of these may fit better there and we actually put money in that. But I would not be comfortable approving 350K. I think if there's a handful of these that maybe make sense, that would be great to point those out, but I can't see spending 350K on items that didn't even come through the process we did 6 months ago.
Councilmember Shockley, we'll just go right down the row.
Yeah. My main hope was that we could use ARPA funds in a way that people would really see. They would pop in some way for the community. That being said, there are just needs that we have that are just far less sexy. We have a lot of fields and we need to be able to maintain those fields, and a lot of, just as a, for instance, what Parks and Rec is looking for is long-term equipment that's going to be necessary to maintain whatever it is, that whether we keep them at the level they are at funding wise or add to make improvements, they're still going to have to be maintained season after season. When you look at some of these other items, like people need the roads plowed. So if this item is necessary and unable to be budgeted for, it's hard to say no when we get to if we have a hard winter next year and people aren't getting their roads plowed.
Mhm.
So while I 100% agree that I want to use some of this money to impact our residents in a way they see, I also need to make sure that we're paying for the back end sausage making materials that just keep the town running.
Councilman Pasqua?
So there's a couple items on here, as we know, that are potentially reimbursed, well, actually not reimbursable by the grant, but could be paid for by grant. The hazard mitigation plan and the K-9 vehicle being two of them. One of them that I'm looking at here is a backhoe. I understand need for it, but we can also rent one on an as needs basis, and we don't have to worry about maintenance or anything on it too. So, I think that's another option that maybe we look at instead of spending 115,000 in ARPA funds, to just kind of consider a lease program when we need them.
So that brings up a good point. We should forward you the packet of the ARPA requests we received, because a backhoe was one of them that was submitted. And the DPW and Recreation share that backhoe and they use it quite frequently. So we can send you that packet so you can see, because some of these were requests that were made through ARPA.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if there's a need for it, and the lease costs per hour the operational costs would outweigh the $115,000 investment, then I can see that, sure. But,
Mhm.
just thinking that, they'd only use it a couple of times a year or a couple of times a month even, it's just, but, I wouldn't have a problem with some of these, but I would make disbursement of at least the top two items here contingent upon not being awarded a grant.
Vice President LeBlanc.
So I guess my concerns are, if we don't approve this list, then I think these departments would actually probably want these to be added back to their budget, which would then negatively impact the budget, at least from my view, because then it would increase the ask. And based off of reading all of these, to me, I believe a lot of them are one-time expenses, which kind of fit the mold for ARPA funds. It's debatable though, because we're always going to need a backhoe every couple of years, but I just feel like backhoe will last us a while. The mower will last us a while. My only concern in this entire list is the last one. I don't know what various other equipment is for $25,000. So without having the details to that, I wouldn't be okay with approving. So, I mean, I would be okay with approving the 357,547 less the 25,000. Because I just don't know what the ask is there.
Okay. I agree with a lot of the sentiments expressed by my colleagues. I do think, though, there's something to be said. I heard notions of something the taxpayers can see. I think seeing a tax levy that's not as high of an increase if this was incorporated into the budget is something they can see. But I also think that there is a point too about what of these are things that have to be maintained later versus buying them now. I do think we should really consider this list and what we could, especially some of these larger ticket items. And I do get Councilor Ludwig's point. I know that when the town manager presents his budget on the 11th, we will be going over in depth that capital list, but you guys did get the capital improvement packet request, I believe about 3 weeks ago from interim manager Robillard. So we can consider these at that time as well. But to me, we have a unique opportunity to lessen the tax burden with these funds, and I think we should consider it. So, Councilmember Shockley.
Can I ask if we have a full breakdown for this fiscal year of what we've spent our capital budget on? I see the sheet in here, but I don't know that that's all that's been spent, or that's all that's been applied to this budget at the time, or what more we need to know what we have put the money into during the course of this year, because I think that's important.
Yeah, I'll certainly try to get that list together and get it circulated. I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Oh, no, I didn't expect that. No, I mean, as much as I'd like you to just memorize everything, but that being unavailable, yeah, I'd just like to see what we've spent it on, if we've spent it all for this year. And, I think it's important that we were able to put that money in the budget last year and that we be able to maintain capital in the budget again this year.
Vice President LeBlanc.
One additional request to that, if I could, maybe detail to the contingency fund as well, because that can be utilized for some emergency purchases, which I think it had.
Any other comments from members of the council on this item?
I can try to make a motion, see what happens. I'll make a motion to approve 332,547, which is that entire list excluding the 25,000.
I think we have to do a resolution. Yeah, it'd have to be at a later date.
I table that.
And to Councilmember LeBlanc's point, possibly that could be broken down in some way before we made a resolution to determine whether or not that there would be something in that expenditure that we would want to pay for out of ARPA funds.
Solicitor Angel.
I think you're right, Councilwoman. I think you need to identify the department and the item and the cost in the resolution, for sure.
And if I can just,
Yes.
on that recreation line, we can get you the details for that. Be honest with you, during the budget meetings, they rattled off a bunch of equipment, and when I was putting this together, I didn't have every piece of equipment, what they named certain items. I'm not a landscaper, so I apologize. I didn't recall the names, but we're meeting with the recreation department on Monday, so we can get, and before then, we can reach out to them and get the details for that 25,000.
If you want to mow the fields and not submit an invoice, that's good too.
We are glad you're not a landscaper based on the role we've hired you for.
All right, so we'll move on now to executive or closed session items. Can I have a motion to go into executive or closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A2, real litigation involving the Center of New England Retail Development, and more particularly Nicholas E. Cambio trustee et al. V. Commerce Park Realty LLC, CA number PM 2013-0350, and Matthew J. McGowan as and only as receiver for Commerce Park Realty LLC, V. Commerce Park Management LLC, CA number PM 2013-5001.
I'll make the motion.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc,
I'll second it.
second from Councilmember Shockley. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua. Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes,
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
we'll now go into executive session. To come out of executive session.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Vice President Blank, second by Councilmember Shockley. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Can I have a motion to seal the minutes of executive session?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Councilmember Shockley, second by Councilman Pasqua. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Members of the public, the council met in executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A2, re litigation involving the Star of New England Retail Development, and more particularly Nicholas E. Cambio, trustee, the Commerce Park Realty LLC, and Matthew J. McGowan as receiver for Commerce Park Realty LLC, the Commerce Park Management LLC. Discussion was had, no votes were taken. Could I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:35 PM?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
I'll second it.
second by Councilmember Shockley. All those in favor? Aye. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.